Chief about this. I'm going to let him talk mostly about it, but in general, when 10% was allocated to the EMS fund, it was a different time. It was obviously several years ago. Costs have gone up. What it was originally designed for now is only funding the cost for an ambulance every 3 years. And if we continue to do that, we'll be way behind the power curve when it comes to things like power cots and the replacement of other vital equipment that if we don't get a grant, we'll be in the same place we were this year with the having to buy ambulance early and taking money from the general fund. So, Chief, I'm going to bring you up and have you talk a little bit about it.
Good evening, all. As Mr. Harris said, we did have a discussion. The discussion surrounded what we were trying to do in 2010 and 2011 with the 10% capital fund. 10% capital fund was used for a number of things. Over the course of time, it replaced a radio when we were really short on cash. It actually was 10% match for the tanker at $29,600 to spend. Out of that, it was used for $47,000 was used for air packs, SCBA. All of those relate to EMS, again, because the tanker was used for rescue. It had the jaws of life on it, and so we used that for that. Air packs and RIT team deployment was the training that was part of the $471,000 grant, and that was that 10% as well was brought forth from the EMS fund again, because we use those things for EMS, active shooter, things like that, rescue operations. So we were able to do that with EMS. More characteristically, since that time, because we went to the Type 1 ambulances, really the 10% EMS fund is used for ambulance purchases. The ambulance purchases are made every 2 years. And again, the exception is this year, and again, we've discussed that at length regarding the hospital and mileage and things like that. So the 10% match has served us well. Again, after we purchase this ambulance, there will be a very small amount left, but again, we'll have 2 years to build it at 10%. I guess there is some concern or some dialogue regarding, obviously do we use the general fund, the 1401 capital account, do we put it into the EMS capital fund, and those are things that are decided well above my pay grade. I think that there's conversation on both sides, and I will say this: the Type 1 ambulances are about $170,000. Again, we got our power cots with grant dollars from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, Community Health Foundation, and then we purchased 2 of them outright. So at present, we're sitting well with those, and we'll continue to write for grants. I mean, grants not only cover ambulances, but we'll be writing one for a ladder truck here shortly, and we'll be writing for operational and equipment needs as those come out. We already have a grant in process that should be decided in the next couple of weeks for a bariatric cot, power cot, and some CPR assist devices. So that was what we went for late last year. And again, that match we're hoping would be able to come out of the EMS fund for those things. Those are all EMS related items. And so if and when we are awarded that grant, I'll be coming back.
Just so everybody else knows, Chief, how much is it to replace a power cot?
Power cots are about $42,000. Again, the Type 1 ambulances are about $170,000. The move to the Type 1 from the Type 3 ambulance was done so that you can take the boxes off and just re-chassis them. The boxes have a much longer life than do the chassis themselves. They'll really go bad and start to wear and tear after about 8 to 10 years. And the boxes on the Type 1 ambulances have been lasting, in other communities about 20 years. So.
What's the life of the power cut?
The life of a power cot is warranted at 6 to 7 years, but they've already got 14 and 15 years out of them. So we're expecting that, we have them serviced biannually according to the manufacturer's guidelines, and so we believe that we're doing everything that we can to extend the life of those.
I had thought we had purchased a few power cots over the last few years. Do you recall when those were purchased previously?
We purchased them all to go in all at once. So when Community Health Foundation gave us the grant, and also the Bureau of Workers' Compensation gave us the grant, we were forced to go to all power cots at the same time, because if we did not do that and we had two-man assist cots with power cots, Bureau of Workers' Compensation would have denied any claims involving non-power cots. So we did that all at the same time, and I believe it was in 2016.
So that's a item that is typically purchased by grants. That would be, even going forward, it would be likely that if you would apply for grants for those purposes, that would be something that would fall within that category.
Not exactly, Mrs. Lipton. Grant dollars are spent on different things. AFG grant itself prioritizes level 1, 2, and 3. This year, power cot system, I believe, is going from a priority 1 to a priority 2, and priority 2s are not funded unless priority 1s are all funded. So if you write a priority 2 grant, you're least likely to get one, and that's because of the influx of all the power cots. But what our purpose is to try and get those to be sustainable, and I think that's what the federal government encourages also. That's why they're backing that law. They put priority 1 elsewhere. In terms of Community Health Foundation and Bureau of Workers' Comp, you could be correct on that, but Bureau of Workers' Comp is only a $40,000 maximum grant, and so that would cover the cost of one. And certainly if we needed to replace one in a hurry, we would try to avail ourselves of those types of things while scrambling to arrange the money. But it's not necessarily true that those are routinely supplied by grant dollars.
If we purchased them all in 2016, why would we need to replace them anytime soon?
I didn't suggest that we did.
Oh, I thought that you said that we purchased the power cots all at the same time.
We did.
In 2016.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
They're working fine. We maintain them. We expect to get a long shelf life out of them. The manufacturer will warranty them until it's a 6 or 7 year warranty, and then the expectation is that they're going to be outdated. Nonetheless, there have been other communities that have had out-of-date power cots that are still routinely serviced, and they function for 14 to 15 years.
I do notice that this has not been signed off on by the auditor's office, and I know that Ms. Bond would like to speak tonight and address council based on this ordinance.
Well, I just wanted to add that you can, and clarify that you can pay anything from the general fund. You can transfer from the general fund to the 1401 fund at any time you want to. When you do put the money into the 1401 fund, and that money is restricted and can only be used for ambulance, for the EMS, or power cots, excuse me, or anything else associated with that. I also wanted to let you know that the 1401 fund for the EMS will probably end up at about $110,000, and next year's estimated revenue is about $120,000, so it would be about $230,000 at the end of 2020. So 10% has been sufficient. The auditor was not willing to sign it because of the approximately $100,000 that would be lost in the general fund.
And how much is generated to the general fund every year?
About $1 million, approximately. You mean for the EMS?
Yes.
We're on target right now to, well, he's at 81%, and we should hit about a little over.
I think we need, and I think probably most of the council will say, is it possible to get us the numbers since we've instituted this of what goes to the general fund based on what goes to the EMS fund? Everybody would probably want to see.
Right now in 2018, it was 853,434 and 94,826 in the 1401.
Can we see how it's progressed over the years? I
Yeah,
don't
I
need
can-
it tonight, but if we could get it, I think council members have some questions about this, and seeing the numbers and how that's going to work would be helpful for the council. Mr. Harris?
When the chief brought the request for legislation for the ambulance and the radios, he brought us a sheet with those numbers already printed out.
That was just for the EMS side of it. I'd like to see what the general fund hit would be and what the change would be as well. I think we'd all like to see what we're generating in the general fund and how that's going to change as well. Did it have both? Okay. I don't know, maybe it did. I don't remember. I don't have it in front of me. Anybody else have any comment, question?
That was my concern. What is the dollar impact from 10% to 20% with the increase? So, yeah, if you can provide us that would be great.
And I know that I spoke with Mr. Manson and Mr. Lewis, and they also wanted to see some numbers and have some concerns. You know, we're looking at reducing the general fund a couple different ways right now, and we have the meetings for the budget coming up as well. And I think we need to take our time on this, on the income tax, on the possibility of raises, and really determine how this is all going to impact the general fund going forward. We got a lot that we're talking about, thinking about, we're missing some numbers tonight. I don't believe I'm ready to sign off on this as a finance committee member. I think we need to see the numbers as well. This is the first time a lot of people are seeing this, and I think we just want to brought that up. Ms. Litton?
As a finance committee member as well, I fall in that same category. In order for us to consider this, we definitely would need to know the impact of the general fund. And if we're going to be looking at the additional funds going into the EMS fund, what exactly would the chief be looking to use that for? I guess I like the idea of the versatility of the funds being in the general fund and then the allocation at the point that something is needed, as with the radios or what the ambulance he currently has in legislation, being considered at the time, knowing exactly what those funds will be used for, but allowing the versatility of those dollars that aren't used or needed in the EMS to be used for other purposes throughout the city.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't be signing on it ever.
I do agree. I think Ms. Bach made a good point. Extending this to 20% does restrict those funds to specific things. So we need to probably mull that over and see how that would affect things as well. And that wasn't something I actually thought of until she said it. So I think that's something we'll all need to think about. Any other comments? Sarah?
My only worry is not necessarily this year or even next year, but maybe 3 years down the road, that say we need another ambulance before the turnover, and say we don't have a carryover in the general fund. We don't have money allocated to EMS related issues, and we need an ambulance, or we need this, that, or the other, and we don't have it. We don't have to depend on grants, and I don't want to be in that situation.
I understand your concern, but I think we all are a little also concerned about, the fact that we do have a carryover now, and we need to make sure that we protect that, and that we don't hit our general fund too hard. I don't want to limit funds too much that we won't be able to use them for something other than EMS if it's necessary. So I think we just need to look at the numbers and continue this conversation. I did notice it's not signed off by the mayor's office either. I don't know if either of you have a comment, Mayor or Dave, about this tonight.
Good evening, members of the council. I did not sign it. As you can recall, for the capital budget, the capital piece of our budget, We are inching up 1% at a time. So we're trying to get our capital budget to be larger. And so I'm just not comfortable going from 10% to 20% at this time. Again, those dollars that we have in carryover, we can use those for purchases such as an ambulance or radios or powered cots. But it does restrict the funds, and we never, the economy is going to go down at some point, and you don't want to have that 20% sitting out there restricting those funds when you may need to pay for salaries. So that was a concern of mine, and that's why I did not sign off. If there is if the council wants to increase that number, I would suggest that you do it in very small increments and take baby steps to get there. But I would suggest just holding at this point because we have a lot of infrastructure needs that we need to do throughout the city, and I would rather put those funds that we currently will be having come in to infrastructure needs, and then when we do need to vehicle replacement, if we don't have the exact amount of money that we need, we go to the carryover for that. Thank you.